Chapter 1. The New Protectors Part 1. A man walked into the hangar. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, and had a beard shaved short. His beard ran down his neck, like a deep brown wave with streaks of white. His hair was surrounding his head, leaving a bald spot on the top. He was fair as well. His skin was a light tin color due to his hours in the lab. He was not chunky nor muscular, but he was not exactly skinny either. Just enough body to hold his coat. His coat looked more like a white trench coat, and it was white long and had pockets here and there. His brown eyes seemed full of mystery and knowledge as he walked in with pride and authority. The hangar was dark except for the glow of the 2 large tubes inside it. They glowed with yellow light and almost reached the ceiling. Consoles and screens lined the sides of the walls, monitoring the creatures inside the tubes. A master console lay under each tube, ultimately controlling all the functions and keeping the temperature in them at a reasonable number. It was mostly silent in the room, except for the clicking of keys on keyboards and little scientific conversations. The man walked up to a scientist that was working the master console under the second tube. "Good morning, Dr. Carolee." The scientist greeted him, a little startled. The decorated man in the white coat nodded dismissively and asked, "How are the prototypes forming?" The less decorated scientist looked at his perfectly shined shoes. "There's been some abnormal energy shifting from one to the other that we are currently correcting. But other than that, they are coming along nicely. Maybe a few more months, and you will be able to control them." The man looked at him with a mix of anger and concern in his eyes. "What do you mean, abnormal energy?" he said sternly, but still keeping up his professional demeanor. The scientist shifted in his shoes nervously and was about to answer when a loud siren blared. It was so loud that all the scientists covered their ears and looked up at the new red flashing lights that had come down from inside the ceiling. The creatures stirred, and the tubes cracked. The man stared at the crack, frozen. He knew exactly what was happening, but didn't move. All his hard work came down to this moment. The cracks kept spreading until they covered the entirety of the tubes. Moments passed as all the scientists held their breath. The tube shattered. The robotic creatures inside fell out, glass flying everywhere. The first creature fell and landed on its mechanical knee as if it had been waiting for this moment. The other fell on its hands and knees, both of them with their heads down. The other scientists in the hangar screamed and ran out a large door and into the corridor of the building, escaping the danger of the self-awakened super soldiers. The head scientist still didn't move, but the creatures did. They both looked up, their pale eyes searching the strange, new environment. Their gray, shiny armor reflected the bright red, flashing light like a mirror. Finally, the creatures locked eyes with the man. Seconds that felt like hours passed as the confused creatures stood up and studied the fascinating being that stood, frozen in their midst. They were tall, about as tall as a 2-story building. Their brains functioned as supercomputers, and their eyes glowed with pale, yellow light that pierced the dark red light that filled the room. They had wings that resembled those of a bat and stretched about as wide as they were tall. They were almost identical, except for their builds. One had a smaller torso and was slightly shorter than the other. It also had a soft jawline on its face and slightly curved shoots of armor poking out of its head. Flat, sphere-shaped plates of armor shielded their audio receptors on both sides of their heads, allowing them to hear the blaring of the siren were to a stop. The other robot was larger and had a torso built like a freight train. Armor covered its chest, arms, legs, and hip joints with thin shoulder armor, making it look powerful, but not too bulky. Their bodies were humanoid except for their wings. The robots finally focused on the man and made eye contact. The scientist was more scared than he would ever admit. In fact, he was so scared he couldn't move and couldn't think. However, his mind was racing. He had every right to be terrified. He, of all people, should know that the beings before him could wipe him and everything in the room out of existence with ease. He also knew that they had awakened too early, just before they were programmed to be controlled by him like remote control toys. However, he also knew that he programmed them to never hurt any human. Thus, they probably would not be provoked and attack him. Those thoughts swirled his mind, including one, "I can't control them, but they are marvelous, majestic, glorious, beautiful." His list continued, but his train of thought was interrupted by the slamming open of a door behind him. Out stepped a girl, clearly oblivious to everything due to her not having turned to face him and the rest of the hangar. She seemed to be about 14 years old with a genuinely petite body. She was wearing a white shirt that seemed to hang off of her, but was tucked into her long, blue jeans at the waist. She had shoulder-length hair that was dark brown with streaks of light brown that looked like a beautiful mudslide with slight waves. She had freckles from her nose down and olive skin. She also had brown, almost black eyes that reflected light, and her irritated mood. Her voice was annoyed and loud as she called, "Dad!" Mom said lunch is ready. But as soon as she saw the current scene, she gasped just as loud as her previous call. She froze for a split second, and then her eyes filled with determination. She ran to the scientist and grabbed his hand, pulling him to the side as she stepped in front of him. She lifted her lips to show her gritted white teeth and furrowed her eyebrows. She looked up at the robots and said, "I'll protect you, Dad." As soon as the girl and the smaller robot locked eyes, they both felt each other in a weird way. The robot the protectiveness and fear in the girl, and the girl felt the robot's confusion, and that it had no bad intentions.